Once again, the eyes of the world are on Jerusalem. The leader of the Palestinian Authority says the holy city will, quote, be the eternal capital of a Palestinian state.
But Israel won't give up its claim on Jerusalem, and it says it will build new settlements there. Chris Mitchell has the story from Israel.
Israel said it would build more than 3,000 new apartments in areas known biblically as Judea and Samaria. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made the announcement to protest the UN vote that granted non-member observer state status to the Palestinian Authority on these very lands. Israel says the vote abrogated agreements the PA and Israel made to each other years ago in the Oslo Accords. Netanyahu also said the PA was waging a struggle against the very existence of the State of Israel. The British and French government, however, objected to Israel's decision to build.
We don't tell neither the British nor the French if to build in Paris or in London, and we do not expect anybody to tell us what to do.
Another part of the controversy concerns plans to expand this Jewish community behind me called Ma'ale Adumim. It's located just outside Jerusalem. Palestinian leaders and some media reports say the expansion would cut the West Bank in two. In fact, the West Bank would still be about 10 miles wide. It would connect this Jewish suburb to Jerusalem. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and many nations call the land occupied territory. But Israel says the land is not occupied, but disputed, and that Israel has both a natural right and territorial claims on it. Meanwhile, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas addressed a crowd in Ramallah after returning from the UN vote. He declared Palestine a state and announced he would accelerate ways to reconcile, not with Israel, but with Hamas in the Gaza Strip. He also promised one day a young Palestinian will raise the Palestinian flag over Jerusalem, the eternal capital of the state of Palestine. After the UN vote and Israel's response, it appears once again that the battle over the future and fate of Jerusalem is taking center stage in the world arena. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Ma'ale Adumim.
I've said many times on this program, say it again, the Jewish people will make all kinds of territorial concessions. They're very insistent on doing what they can to bring about peace. They want peace very badly. They don't want to be in a state of war. But they are not going to give up their capital. They are not going to give up Jerusalem. Jerusalem was won by King David about the year 1000 BC. That's 3,000 years ago. That's a long time. And that's the Jewish claim to it. And it's established in the Bible. It's established in history. There has never been a so-called state of Palestine. It does not exist except in the mind of those who are talking about it right now. And ladies and gentlemen, the Bible says, you read the book of the prophet Zechariah, it says all nations shall gather against Jerusalem, and that's what's going to happen. The nations of the world will come against Israel. Israel will be fighting for its survival, and they will call upon the name of the Lord, and the Lord himself will answer and give them strength and victory. It's going to happen, but it will be a bloody mess coming up. So make no mistake about it. And for the Palestinians to make this outrageous claim to come out and say, well, this is going to be our eternal capital, when they know good and well the headquarters of the Israeli state is located in Jerusalem. And for the Palestinian leader to say, well, no, that's going to be ours, it just shows a degree of hubris that is appalling. But we've seen that around here at home, as a matter of fact. We have had an equal showdown and equal outrageous claims being made by one side. And let's let Lee Webb tell us more about it.
Well, we're talking about the fiscal cliff budget negotiations, Pat, and so far, neither side says they can agree with the other side's offer. Democrats, of course, want to raise taxes on high-income Americans, and they say they want some cutting in spending. But Republicans say those plans for spending cuts aren't serious. Charlene Israel has the story.
I think we're going over the cliff. It's pretty clear to me they've made a political calculation.
There's now worry in Washington that the fiscal cliff negotiations could fail and take the country over the cliff. What that would mean, a $2,200 to $2,400 tax increase for the average family and a 2% payroll tax cut that would disappear. It would also mean $250 billion in Pentagon cuts and another $250 in education, transportation, and food safety research. A major sticking point, the president's insistence that tax cuts for the wealthiest 2% be allowed to expire.
There is no responsible way we can govern this country with those low rates in place for future generations. Those rates are going to have to go up.
Another point of contention, the president wants $1.6 trillion in new tax revenue over the next 10 years. Speaker Boehner wants half that. On Fox News Sunday, the speaker shot down the president's plan.
A non-serious proposal. The president is asking for $1.6 trillion worth of new revenue over 10 years, twice as much as he's been asking for in public. He had stimulus spending in here that exceeded the amount of new cuts that he was willing to consider. It was not a serious offer.
Economists say if Washington can't reach a deal on this one, the U.S. economy will fall back into recession and the unemployment rate will go up. Charlene Israel, CBN News.
Pat, it seems like the question that the Republicans need to hammer home is this one question: is government too big?
Absolutely, Lee. You know, I would. They really need a skilled television production expert to set up a series of spot advertising showing young people. You could imagine a young person who has a bill and he comes to his father and he says, "Dad, I just got a bill from the federal government. It's for $130,000 in taxes. You know, this is for me. And it says it's to pay for the health of Chinese prostitutes. And why should I have to pay for that?" And the father says, "Well, you know, you voted for him. I told you not to." What a great commercial. If they had everything that is in that budget that is nutty, and there are plenty of things, just outrageous things that are in there that the Democrats insist on holding the line on. Outrageous. Triple, quadruple, multiple layers of bureaucracy. They want to hold on to all of it. And if they would just show the ridiculous nature of it to the American people, I think that the Republicans would lose. They need something better than what they're doing now in terms of the PR war. But
you know, we almost seem a little bit numbed by our blessings to this whole thing. I wonder if people would do anything if they knew more about it.
Well, unfortunately, it'll come down, and then there'll be a big fight. Like, who caused it? It was the Republican intransigence, and all they want to do is lower taxes on the rich. They really ought to give on some of these things and say, okay, we're going to give you this, and the economy's still screwed up. Yeah. But the Democrats won't budge an inch on anything. The president, in that last round of negotiations, was willing to shut the federal government down in order to preserve the money being given to Planned Parenthood. Now, that's how bad it was. That didn't get out much of the press, but it's true. That's what they were willing to do. They was willing to shut the government down, put everybody out of work. But the time's going to come when you not have police, you don't have garbage pickup, you don't have utilities, you don't have libraries open, you don't have lights in the Martian Monument, you don't have the parks, and you go down the line of stuff they'll start cutting. But the Republicans right now need to lay the groundwork in a major advertising campaign to set the stage for it. It's not enough to have John Boehner going on a talk show on Fox News on Sunday and say this is the Republican response. They've got to have something more broad scale if they want to win the battle. And they're not doing it. They ought to. They must have some money in the Treasury they can take to spend on some really clever advertising.
One would hope.
One would hope. Well, Lee, what's next?
Pat, a federal judge has issued a preliminary injunction against the president's health care mandate on behalf of Bible publisher Tyndale House. The Christian company objects to the provision that requires coverage for contraceptive and abortion-inducing drugs. Judge Reggie Walton said the mandate compels the plaintiffs to violate their religious beliefs or face government fines and lawsuits. Tyndale's president compares the fight to block the mandate to the Bible story of David and Goliath, and he says the battle is the Lord's. The U.S. Military Academy at West Point hosted its first same-sex weddings. They were held over the last 2 weekends, one of them in the Academy's historic chapel. Army chaplains from other posts performed the ceremonies because the denominations of the West Point chaplains do not allow them to perform same-sex marriage ceremonies. New York legalized same-sex marriage last year. A few months later, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, and gays were allowed to serve openly in the military. Sad day, Pat.
General Douglas MacArthur rolling over in his grave. Ulysses S. Grant rolling over in his. Robert E. Lee rolling over in his. What have they done to our cherished institution? Lee.
The 2012 Redemptive Film Festival recently honored more than 30 films for their redeeming storylines. One of the movies is called The Pink Room. It tells the stories of young girls in Cambodia trapped in sex trafficking. And as Heather Sells reports, its message is one of hope.
The Pink Room lets the viewers in on the pain of young trafficked girls in the village of Swipak. The main economy here, child prostitution. Tragically, pedophiles from around the world arrive daily to take advantage.
So what you doing here? So what you gonna do when you're done with your coffee?
But the Pink Room is quick to focus on a redemptive ministry in Swipak. Agape International Missions helps to restore girls who are rescued. Pink Room director Joel Sandvo says he wanted to tell their stories.
We focused on hope, we focused on restoration, and that's not what this is. It's not about just talking about how bad the problem is and everything, but it really sets itself apart because it's about solutions and it's about hope, and in the end, people are crying tears of joy rather than tears of like depression and frustration.
The Pink Room shows how the Agape ministry rebuilds young lives like Mian's. After watching her brothers and sisters go hungry, she decided at age 14 to enter a brothel. She quickly found herself trapped in torture and bondage, worse than she had imagined. But when she arrived at the Agape home, she found a new world, beginning with a princess ceremony.
They've heard before, from their customers, their guests, I love you. So they're like, yeah, I've heard that before. But then they start living it and believing it. It's really just an honor to be a part of, to see.
Sandvos is currently re-editing the documentary for PBS, and he says it's already awakening the church as viewers begin to see how to help children who've suffered unspeakable evil.
And people are very hopeful when they talk to us, and they say, I've seen a lot of documentaries on sex trafficking, but this one actually made me feel good, and I was actually happy and hopeful.
Heather Sells, CBN News.
Encouraging to know that PBS, Pat, is picking up this film.
I'm delighted, but I tell you, this is the most appalling thing. It just does something to me, and it should to everybody watching this program. The trafficking in young girls and young boys for sex, and these evil people coming from Europe, from America, from other parts of the world, from the Middle East, to go into places like Thailand to prey on these kids and to vent their sick lust on them. It just makes you sick at your stomach.
10 people are dead after an attack on Christians in northeastern Nigeria. It happened in the village of Chibok in Borno State. A security official says gunmen attacked a church and a road construction crew. The radical Islamist sect Boko Haram has targeted churches and government establishments in that region. CBN programming is reaching out to Indonesians with the gospel. Obat Malam is the name of a program that uses a talk show format with testimonies and local music. And another CBN program, Solusi, which means solutions, made history by ranking #1 in its time slot on television 4 weeks in a row. In 1 month alone, CBN's call centers received more than 37,000 calls, letters, emails, and text messages in response to CBN's locally produced television programs. And more than 700 people professed faith in Jesus Christ. You can find out more about what CBN is doing around the world by logging on to cbn.com/international.